thinking back to your early years into your career, what was the biggest risk you took at the time, which seemed monumental? How were you feeling? And then looking back on it, how was it?
I think there's probably two. I think the first one was when I was in sixth form, which is quite a long way back, which sounds odd, but it kind of set the whole path for where my career has ended up. So I was a bit of an A student, I was getting really good grades, all that sort of stuff, and I got into sixth form. And you have this whole thing in school of you get to the next step. I was in sixth form and I was like, do I really want to go to university and do more learning, or do I want to just get out there? So I decided to drop out of sixth form. I wouldn't advise that, by the way, if there's any kids watching, definitely complete sixth form. But for me, it was just I just want to work. I just want to make money. I just want to get out into the world. And as you can imagine, everybody turned around and went, what are you doing? You're making a massive mistake. It's the stupidest thing you've ever done. And it wasn't easy, but for me, that is what kind of landed me into the data space, because it wasn't something that I ever really thought about. It wasn't something that I was like, oh yeah, I'm really passionate about data in the beginning. So I went to work at ONS, Stats Office. And one of the things there is I went into the admin team. I thought, I'll just get a good job, get some money coming in. And I became an admin person for that data team. And for me, I've always been inquisitive. So I was sat there, I was having to do really boring admin process stuff. But I just started asking questions, looking at what they were doing. And it was really interesting. I was actually in the data laboratory, which is where I was doing the admin. And it was really interesting to me, well, what do you mean people are coming in and having access to this data and then having to get it out, but really confidentially? And it just started my whole obsession with data, to be perfectly honest.
Hello, I'm Kieran O'Connor, and this is episode 5 of the Calculated Risks podcast. And today we're joined by Marco Oliver. Marco is a South Wales-based entrepreneur with over 18 years experience in the IT industry. He's currently the CEO and co-founder of Configur. He's a corporate ambassador for Prostate Cymru, a part-time TikTok content creator, and an all-round nice guy. Hello, Marco.
Hey, Kieran. How are you doing?
I'm very good today. Thank you very much.
That's a very nice intro, mate. Thank you very much.
That's no worries, man. Nice guy on the end. I thought was a nice touch.
It's a nice touch. I appreciate that.
I thought I'd start. I don't know if I give you one of these copies before. A copy of my book. I think I was meant to give you one recently, so that can...
Oh, amazing.
You'd be framed in the office if you like.
Look at you writing a book.
Sure. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Impressive.
Very accomplishment.
I'll definitely read that.
Thanks for coming on podcast. You've had a long way to travel today, I'm sure.
Yeah, all of about 10 steps.
10 footsteps. Yeah. Nice. I like to start the podcast the same way every time, and I've got a feeling that I'm going to like your answers to the first couple of questions. So it's to do with risk, and the first one is going back in time a little bit to understand the big first risk that you took and how you're feeling. So thinking back to your early years into your career, what was the biggest risk you took at the time, which seemed monumental? How were you feeling? And looking back on it, how was it?
I think there's probably two. I think the first one was when I was in sixth form, which is quite a long way back, which sounds odd, but it kind of set the whole path for where my career has ended up. So I was a bit of an A student. I was getting really good grades, all that sort of stuff. And I got into sixth form. And you have this whole thing in school of you get to the next step. I was in sixth form and I was like, do I really want to go to university and do more learning, or do I want to just get out there? So I decided to drop out of sixth form. I wouldn't advise that, by the way, if there's any kids watching, definitely complete sixth form. But for me, it was just I just want to work. I just want to make money. I just want to get out into the world. And as you can imagine, everybody turned around and went, what are you doing? You're making a massive mistake. It's the stupidest thing you've ever done. And it wasn't easy, but for me, that is what kind of landed me into the data space, because it wasn't something that I ever really thought about. It wasn't something that I was like, oh yeah, I'm really passionate about data in the beginning. So I went to work at ONS, the Stats Office. And one of the things there is I went into the admin team. I thought, I'll just get a good job, get some money coming in. And I became an admin person for that data team. And for me, I've always been inquisitive. So I was sat there, I was having to do really boring admin process stuff. But I just started asking questions, looking at what they were doing. And it was really interesting. I was actually in the data laboratory, which is where I was doing the admin. And it was really interesting to me, well, what do you mean people are coming in and having access to this data and then having to get it out, but really confidentially? And it just started my whole obsession with data, to be perfectly honest. So sort of fast forward 7 years at ONS, it was my sort of next big risk. I had kind of moved my way up the ranks a few times, and there was a big problem that came in about we have to do this big piece of work and it's going to take 400 days and we need to find a way to do this. And I love problem solving, trying to find those kinds of things. So we created this code, myself and my manager there, Rob, and he was like, oh, this is quite cool. We managed to get it down to 2 weeks, right? So he was like, oh, this is good. And decided to write a paper on it. When presented it, I was probably about 23 at the time. And I had a phone call come in like 2 weeks later because I presented it at a big global conference. And they just said, we've got a center of excellence we're starting. And it was Hewlett Packard, HP. Would you be interested? Now, if anyone works in government, you know it can be quite a stable job. You can kind of see the progression levels. And they were like, would you be interested? For me, it was like a bit daunting because I was like, well, maybe. And I thought I'm going to chance this. And I basically asked for twice my current salary level, which I didn't quite get, but it wasn't far away. And I went and did the interview and they said, look, we'd love you to come work for us. And then it was like, this is a big risk. Do I go into this private sector world where I've got imposter syndrome of I'm probably not good enough to do this? Or do I stay where I am? And I just figured, do you know what? I'm going to take that chance. And that was what set me off into the consulting world and the data world and starting to work with loads of different clients and kind of what got me really interested. So those two big risks actually ended up meaning that I ended up here.
Yeah, a couple of things on that. You mentioned when you dropped out of sixth form, full transparency, I dropped out of sixth form as well. Best thing that ever happened to me as well. Did you know that you wanted to go into data, or was it IT was the direction, just didn't know it was going to be data?
I didn't even know what I wanted to do.
Really?
Yeah, I had no vision of, I knew I was good with IT. I was pretty handy and I sort of dabbled a little bit and things like that, but I didn't really know the direction. I actually, when I did drop out, funny story, I ended up, my dad said, look, I'll get you a job while you work out what you want to do. And I ended up on a construction site. I lasted a week.
Oh, did you?
I mean, it just wasn't for me. The cold, I mean, absolutely fair play to anybody who does it. It's just not for me. I couldn't, some people love it. I couldn't be outside. And just the conversations that the guys were having, like proper laddie banter, I was just like, this is not where I see my future. So that kind of then just gave me a bit of focus of, okay, it's not just about earning money. I actually want to do something with myself that I feel is passionate, like I'm passionate about. It can't just be something that's going to earn me money. And for me, I wasn't passionate about that. And I completely love that some people are, but I was like, I want to be in an office job. That was my next thing. I need to be in an office job. And yeah, that's sort of set it off.
It's funny, that's a similar journey to mine, actually. I don't know if I've ever told you.
No,
The first job I ever had was door-to-door sales. Great place to learn. If anyone would ever consider that, it was commission only.
Yeah.
Absolutely wild. You know, I actually done quite well for 6 months, but then I thought, oh no, I need to step up. So I went to be a labourer. For somehow door-to-door sales, becoming a labourer was a step up. And then I decided I needed an office job. And that was recruitment, and I haven't looked back since. So
yeah, so you just went office job and then ended up in recruitment.
Yeah.
I went office job and ended up in data. So yeah.
Okay, cool. The next question is, I imagine it's changed quite a lot for you, right? But what's your tolerance like with risk now, and how risk averse are you 18 years in?
God, I mean, compared to where I was, I'm a much more, I'd say I'm more open to risk, but I think it has to be calculated risk. I'm still not somebody that will just take an absolute punt or complete chance. I think in the beginning, especially in like working for large corporates, you get to learn of, you know, everything's methodical, like everything's thought out quite extensively. When you go into a startup world, you're like, okay, this is a bit different. I need to take some calculated risks. But I think it's all about analyzing what the risk is versus the reward. And for me, if there's a much bigger chance of reward and the downside isn't too drastic, I will do it. But it definitely has to be calculated. I'm still not somebody that will just chuck everything at it. No, I'm just not that way.
I'm really curious on that. Do you have like an actual decision-making process for that? So you said if there's more to gain than to lose, can you do that in minutes? Or is this a day process? Are you writing stuff out? How does it look?
It depends how big the commitment is. So if it's a massive financial commitment versus a time commitment, I'm more flexible on the time commitment. I will always take a chance on my time. I mean, we're all stuck for time, right? But if there's a little bit, if there's something I can give and that means I just have to work harder or longer, I'm more open to risk. If it's something that's a financial risk, I'm a little bit less risk averse. And that goes for the company and myself personally. I mean, one of the things for me, frustratingly, is because I was in the space, I was crypto, right? And Bitcoin. I was dabbling around Bitcoin when it was I'd say about 100 to 150 quid a Bitcoin. And I was like, I could put some money into this. I could really invest in this. And I was just like, do you know what? There's probably other areas that are a bit less risky with my money. And I was sort of like, no, I won't do it. look at it now. So that goes to show sort of I'm always interested. So I literally learned it. Like I learned blockchain, everything to like the nth degree because I love the process. And that's kind of where I really get excited. But then when it came to crypto, it was too much of a volatile market. And I was like, I'm not sure I'm willing to commit to that. But that might give you a bit of like thought into my mind in terms of how it works. I love learning and I won't necessarily take uncalculated risks.
It's very hard to know at the time though, right? Like crypto is going to take off at the time. So.
I mean, especially to the levels it has. You know?
Yeah. Okay, cool. So Configur's the main business right now.
Absolutely.
That's how I know you. But I'd like to go back in time a little bit. So what was the first step you took from public sector to private sector? When did you set up a business?
So the first time I set up a business was I'd moved from HP to Sopra Steria, another consultancy. And then I remember I was literally about to get on the flight to Florida with a family. And I had a phone call that said, look, there's a contractor role. Would you be interested? And at the time I was, loving what I was doing. I was like, do you know what? I don't know. I'm not really sure. And then, they said, well, this is the day rate, it was a decent day rate. And I thought, I could take a chance. And again, it comes down to that sort of thing. But what was really helpful is I actually had a breather on holiday to have a think about it. And that was the moment I thought, do you know what? I can always come back to a job, but maybe this might be the chance for me to first dabble into business, understand how contracting works. And I think if anybody's looking at if they've got skills that transfer into contracting, it's a really good entry point, I think, for being able to kind of understand how business works a bit more, because you've got to deal with accountants, you've got to deal with tax, you've got to start to understand your cash flow, keeping a pot aside. All of that sort of stuff really helped shape a bit of knowledge around, okay, well, if I did a business, actually fully fledged business in the future, I have a bit of an understanding around these things. So for me, that was the first time. It was going into contracting. I set up Modit, which was Marco Oliver Design and IT. I like the name of it. So yeah, I did that for about 2 years. And then a friend of mine said, I've got a chatbot and AI business, and I've been talking to him before about different things. And he said, it's a startup. It's like, what's a startup? I have no idea what a startup is. So yeah, they've taken on investment and they had lots of data and wanted to understand if they could do it. So I went to work there and, had at the time a little stake in the business. And that's actually where I met Josh, who's my co-founder and CTO. Yeah.
Nice. So that's going to be an interesting story to talk about, because going back to the contracting side of things, the people that we speak to, there's contractors who, like you said, get experience of going out self-employed. They don't really have anyone to report into on a massive scale. The money's good, but they don't want the people management or the stress of scaling the business. But you went down the route of, actually, I like this. This is a good step in. I need to take it one step further now and go for a business. Yeah,
I think for me, I didn't realize it at the time, but I've always had this desire to make something, like build something. And I didn't know what that was, but I think I realized that I wanted to have something that I could call my own. And it was something that I was proud of, whether that would be like the team that I built or the product that we built or whatever that is. And in Configur, I managed to get both. When I was working at the previous startup, I was treating it like my own business anyway, because that's the way I am. You kind of throw yourself into everything. You kind of go, I'm going to make this, give this 100%. And then it got to the point where I was like, I actually need to do this for myself. I need to go and do this as my own company so that I can steer it the way I want to steer it. And luckily Josh was at the same point himself, and we spotted that gap, and we spotted there was a problem in the data space, and we wanted to solve it. And I think that it comes back to that being a problem solver, how you can kind of see that. And kind of, as we just talked through a few of the different experiences, they all kind of combined into that moment to go, okay, I want to be a problem solver. I want to build my own thing. I want to be my own boss. So hang on, let's do a startup.
Yeah, it's funny when you look back at all the things you've done and, all the skills you've picked up contribute to what you're doing now. I found that as well.
It is like that. It comes down to kind of that one moment, doesn't
it? Yeah, for sure. Going back to the business before then, we'll touch on that lightly before we get into Configur. You entered that business. What was the name of it?
We Build Bots at the time.
Yeah.
Logic Dialogue now.
Yeah. And just give me an overview of that journey. What did you learn? What were your biggest takeaways thinking back now?
I learned a lot. I hadn't really heard anything about investment as such. So they crowdfunded a lot. They use Seeders, which is one of the platforms you can get crowdfunding and different things. But that whole concept of having funding to come into a business, I didn't know anything about that. I think the ability to be agile and really flexible in kind of how you want to make decisions and change was really interesting. So, coming from the corporate background, I mean, we used to do documents on documents to be able to change some bits of code, So to be able to go, okay, this is something I can say I want to do something, and then next week I can do it, was really exciting. So that was quite interesting. But then I realized, I think from the time where I had been a contractor and I was almost my own boss at that point, and then I went back to work for someone. I mean, I know I was relatively senior in the company, but I was still working for somebody else. It kind of made me go, I don't want this. I don't want to be working for somebody else. I need to do my own thing. And there was a lot of learnings, but I learned a lot more about business, learned a lot more about the sort of, I've been doing technical sales anyway, but the general sales process, a bit more about marketing in that company. So it kind of just rounded off some of the skills I probably didn't have. And then, set us up really nicely for Configur then.
Nice. So it was kind of like stepping stones, right? You went from public sector, private sector, contracting, worked in a startup, and then the next sensible step is doing your own startup, right?
Exactly.
So you went straight from We Build Bots at the time to Configur?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So how did you meet Josh?
So we literally started working together in that chatbot and AI company. Okay. We were sort of like, Josh was running the technical side, I was sort of doing some of the business side. And we were kind of doing that day to day and overseeing the team. So we were working quite closely together because you have to sort of combine at a strategic level and do all that sort of stuff. And we just got on really well. We just got on really, really well. And what's quite interesting with us, if you've met Josh and you've met me, we're very different people. Like, Josh is very sort of focused on the details of things. Like, he will literally analyze different components of like the budgets and different things and challenge on everything. I'm more the fluffy guy, right? I'm the guy that goes like, we can make this happen. Like, don't worry about that. We'll sort this out. And we do switch from time to time, as you have to, but generally we've got like very different approaches to things, different approaches, and then we combine and it works perfectly. So you get like that really good hybrid. And like, one of the things that we've realized as we've gone through this sort of journey with Configur is when you're talking to people, they see it and they're like, wow, the overlap that you guys have. Like, Josh is really good at like the marketing for like space as well as the technical. I'm good at kind of turning that into a sales message and being able to help people relate to it and understand to it. And but again, like, there's so much crossover because I'm still technical as well. So yeah, it's really good.
You sound very fortunate that you've met someone who you can collaborate with like that.
Yeah,
so well.
Absolutely.
Because I had Kai on the podcast earlier in the week, and he is very technical. His co-founder Ross is not technical at all, and he won't mind me saying that. And the blend that they've got is just perfect because Ross is out there making the sales and really driving the business forward, where Kai has a technical hat on and does pretty much everything from zero to launch. So, but it sounds like you two have got a bit more of a crossover because you're technical as well, and Josh is.
There's a little bit of a crossover, which helps, but we also now try and stay in each other's lanes. So we stay in our lanes, but then we're able to challenge each other, which is quite nice. Like, we haven't got to just take it at face value what the other one is saying, because we do have a bit of knowledge in both areas. So it's quite nice that we have that kind of connection of, well, are you sure, mate? And are you sure, mate? And it works really well. And do you know what? I don't think we've ever had an argument in 5.5 years, because I think we've always had a way of just talking through it to the point where we're like, no, do you know what? That makes sense. And I think it's like, it comes from like an aligned vision of going, well, we know what the end goal is. So how we navigate to that and get there, we'll work that out. Like, there's always a way to sort of discuss and challenge each other without arguing. So we've never argued.
It's a very mature way of doing things.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have expected to argue with him at least once. But
in 5 years.
Never.
Yeah, impressive. Yeah. So for anyone watching, tell them and me what Configur does in simple terms.
Yeah, so it's a AI-powered data platform that helps businesses unlock their business intelligence, and that is for everyone in the business. So where we're a little bit different is there's a lot of business intelligence tools out there, but they are aimed at technically minded or data-minded people. And what we aim to do and are doing is address the data literacy gap. So that's people who are like, day-to-day working with data, but don't really think about it like that. And they're trying to get insights out of it. And they're like, well, I need to go and speak to that person over there or that person over there to do it. We empower those people to actually do it themselves. The way that we do that is we've got what is now called Abby, which is our artificial intelligence layer on top of the platform. And what Abby is able to do is just allow you to ask questions of your data. It's able to support you in doing things with your data, whether that's, building it, validating it, cleaning it. It helps with all of that process. But the ultimate end goal is you can basically say, what's my sales pipeline looking like next week or next month, or how we performed operationally in this team. What's the breakdown of this team's KPIs? All those kind of key things. It's just about being able to ask those questions and get the insights out.
Nice. So would companies still need data analysts, data scientists, or does this platform take the majority of that work?
You will absolutely still need that, right? So there's some really complex data analytics that happen, and those guys aren't going anywhere. You've got really vast data warehouses, data lakes, all these kinds of things. What we're trying to do is help the operational teams who have, they have systems, they have spreadsheets in abundance. But when they're using it, they're then having to wait for these teams who are like at capacity, to be perfectly honest, to be able to go and get those insights for them. We just empower them to do it themselves. And why? And also the data analysts love us because we're able to help those teams get their data in a really good structure. That means that they're more operational, they're more automated, they're more efficient. And when they do need to consume the data in the data team, it's in a clean way, structured, and it makes their job easier to do the really complex, super complex reports. And don't get me wrong, Configur's capable of doing complex stuff, but we're aiming to help with the sort of the easy, low-hanging fruit, things that are going to make a difference to that team. And also it comes down to, data sharing, being able to send data to someone else in another business, to a stakeholder. That's not easy at the moment. And we do that in a really secure way. So by the time you've got a nice central pot of data that can connect, we connect to thousands of systems, upload your spreadsheets, whatever that is, you can then share that with whoever you need to, give them access in a controlled way, and they can do what they need to do with it as well.
That's a good sell. You must be doing the sales, I imagine.
I am doing the sales.
Yeah, that's a very good sell, yeah.
Thanks.
If we were speaking off camera, the clients that you target or have in the portfolio at the minute, are they sort of mid-market to enterprise?
Yeah, we actually have quite a mix because when we started, we were aiming to go, right, okay, this will be an enterprise product probably that's going to hit government clients, large enterprises. But when we started it, 2019, lockdown then kicked in about 4 or 5 months later, and we realized we couldn't get on any frameworks because they shut them all down. Everything, we're like, but the whole world is sort of trying to digitize in this space. So we started picking up clients in construction, some sports clubs, various different areas which we'd never even considered, and realized that actually we don't have to just do a really high price point. This can be quite a flexible pricing system. So it kind of changed how we looked at it. But, in the kind of the latter stages where we headed now, because of the features we brought in and the kinds of volumes of data and things we're dealing with, we're processing hundreds of millions of data points. It kind of goes, well, it is specifically really powerful when you get to larger enterprises, government clients, but there is a whole market. So for a context, about 30% of our client base is construction companies, varying sizes. And that's because they have need to centralize everything, especially some industries where they haven't always kept up to date on the digital side because everything else is evolving so quickly. It helps them get things like invoicing, project tracking, timesheets, all of that sort of stuff. And we're not trying to be operational if we can help it. We're more analytical, right? We're trying to say, we'll give you the insights into those things. So the systems that they do have, we can bring it all together. But when you bring together invoicing, project management, and all those things I just said, all of a sudden you can ask questions on that data. They're going to give you better insights for how you drive the business forward than if they're all sat in separate systems just reporting on very small areas of those metrics. When you can actually ask across the business kind of like, how are we performing? It's a very powerful insight that you get that can help drive your business forward.
Yeah, sounds really good. And I like that you're helping any skill level understand data in a better way. I'm thinking now to implement a tool like this, and this is maybe from experience as well, it's a big mindset shift more than anything to say, hey, look, this you can do this better. You can use a tool to collaborate more with other areas of business, other offices. And what's been like the biggest challenge you come up against when trying to get this into businesses?
So the biggest challenge we've had, full stop, is that it can do so much. People feel like, well, I don't know where to start and I don't know if it can do anything at all. So what we've had to do is really focus in on use cases, specific areas. So for example, private equity stuff that we're doing now is very focused on what we call origination, which is sourcing the businesses that they might want to work with and understanding more about those businesses. And then you've got the public sector stuff that we're looking at, and is looking at, well, how do you understand, for example, EV infrastructure in a certain area? They're very specific use cases. So what I would say is when we speak to different businesses, and we do this sometimes through partners. So we've got an education partner. They will go to those schools and multi-academy trusts that they deal with, and they will come back with the challenges, and they use our platform to deliver those challenges. But we don't have to actively sell it into those markets because it's too difficult to go in every scenario. We have a very specific use case for you. But what we do with any business is we'll say to them, look, let's phase this deliverable. Because if you try and change too much at once, no one's going to want to adopt it. So we'll say, these are the phases of what your project looks like. These are the phases of what we can focus on. But what's your biggest pain point? What's the biggest challenge you've got right now? And let's start there. So we'll pick that. We'll work with them to implement that. And what happens is once people see the benefit that they can get from the platform in that business, everyone else is kind of chomping at the bit to get hold of it for their own use cases, right? So it kind of becomes well, I want that as well, and I want that as well. And then we just plan out a phased approach. And it means that it's not too much of an overhaul. We try and minimize the effort on people that we're working with because they're busy, right? Like they're already doing the day-to-day. And the reason they want something like this is to free up their time. So you can't then go, well, I need 2 months off you. It doesn't work. So we try and minimize all of that, but that's typically how we do it. It's a bit more of a phased approach.
Okay, I've been holding on to a question for 5 minutes now from what you mentioned earlier about you spotted a gap in the market, or you identified this problem. I know through speaking to lots of founders, and even through my own mind, always trying to think about how to solve certain problems. So how did you and Josh see this? And then what was like the next steps?
So what was happening? So this was chatbots, right? Before ChatGPT or any of the things we're doing. So when I started at that company, it was probably 8 years ago. We were doing chatbots then, natural language, having those conversations. And when we were working with customers, they were saying, well, I want to make my data accessible in this chatbot to make it better. And we'd say, well, where's your data? And they say, in an Excel spreadsheet, or it's in that system and that system and that system, or it's on a PDF. And we'd say, okay, well, how are you going to get it to us? And they're like, well, can't the chatbot just do that? And we were like, well, no, that's not what a chatbot's there for. A chatbot is there to do the conversational layer, translate that into questions, give you the answers. And it came up and it came up and it came up time after time. And we were like, this is a genuine problem because it's not necessarily, there was still like, data warehouses and data lakes, but they were much bigger aspirations for the business. They weren't connected to like this customer service element or the internal team element and things. So we were like, what if we just created a product that would make this really easy to centralize this data, and then you could plug a chatbot on top of it. So we were already thinking about the AI angle when we started the product. So we were all about AI data preparation. That was kind of where we were thinking Configur was going to be. We knew it was going to be an emerging market. We knew it was going to head in that direction. And obviously now, fast forward, we've put our own AI into the platform, but we still have some customers who will plug chatbots in. We work with a chatbot provider, and they can connect in with us, and they can get answers to that stuff. But that it's become much broader than that now.
I do love a story where someone's been in the industry for many, many years, and they kept seeing a problem, like you said, and then decided to act on it. And it turns out it is a big problem, big market here to go after, and it turns out it's worked out really well.
It has.
Okay, going back to when you launched then with Josh, when did you get the first paying customer?
What was the first paying customer? Do you know what? I should probably know the answer to this. I think what we actually did for the first year, because it wasn't on the platform, because the platform wasn't built, right? So we went and approached some of the companies we knew, for example, Tramshed Tech and a few others, and said, look, we're going to be building a product, but we need some projects to kind of fund it. We wanted to bootstrap it for the first year. So I think one of the first clients was probably AM, which is a Welsh music app. And they came to us and said, we want to, build this music app. Can you do that? And we were like, yeah, we can. And we did like the consultancy and different things. Tramshed, we did some workshops for data workshops for some of the big transport companies. Mainly leveraging like other tools and explaining to them how data fits together. But it was a way of us earning money doing that kind of thing. I actually got some work back in ONS as well, doing some of that just to kind of keep the funds up and giving advice and doing some projects. So we kind of went through that stepping process for the first year. I think think we did around 160 grand in the first year, just the two of us, just kind of doing these projects. But it was all with a view of trying to understand the market better, and trying to say, well, what is the challenge that they've all got? If we build, and some of the clients we actually brought on, we said, look, if we build you this platform, do you mind if we can utilize some of the components for it in some of the other stuff we're doing? So it wasn't just like wasted time. We didn't do that with everybody, but some of them that we sort of got on well with and made sense, we did. And then we moved into the second year, made our first hire, which was Dennis, who's still with us, head of product. We sort of went from there and started building the platform out.
Nice. 160K in the first year. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I was well happy with that.
Yeah, very well done. At what point did you think, this is going to be big, or we've really got something here? Was there like a specific month? Some people just go, skyrocket, or was it a gradual increase?
No, it was gradual. And one of the hardest challenges we had was when we took investment on, we had to give up all that consultancy stuff, because you have to be hyper-focused, right? You can't be spreading too much going, we're going to just keep doing random consultancy and build a product. You either build a product or you do consultancy, unless you're a big team and you can do both. So we had to jump in with 2 feet, and that was really scary. So we did the first investment round, raised 250,000-ish, I think. And then we were like, right, okay, well, we now have to recruit some staff, start building the product, and we've got to try and sell the product before it's even built. How are we going to do this? Which was a challenge. But again, we just leveraged a few partners, said, look, if you know someone that's trying to get a product like this, we can help shape it around them. Wouldn't advise anybody ever do that. But that was what we did. It does make it challenging, because you end up with bigger clients who demand that it kind of works in the way they want it to work. You then have to adapt it to what they want, but you're trying to build this like wider vision of your platform. We navigated it okay, and it went really well, but it was, that was a challenge. I think if you're going to build a product, build it for what you think it should be based on what you know the problems are, not specific clients.
Otherwise it keeps chopping and changing.
Keeps chopping and changing.
Pulled left and right.
Your focus gets pulled everywhere. You start building this feature because this client really needs it for something. And obviously you want to, I think like one of our oldest clients is Mobile Squared, who's still with us now. We still support them. And in the beginning, so they're the number one provider of SMS data globally. They have a ton of data, hundreds of millions of data points in our platform. And what we were like, yeah, we can make this work. And what we didn't really realize is the infrastructure needed to be so robust for that kind of volume. So that took a whole load of processing before we'd even built all the other feature sets that we wanted. These little things like that will catch you out. But with them, we've got a fantastic relationship. We've kept them on even till now, and I think we've got another 3 years with them. We're really partnered up, and we both support each other really well. And I always say to Nick, who runs the company, I will always be grateful that you took that chance on us, because they were one of our first big clients. So it's exciting.
Yeah, and how long's the business been going now?
5.5 years now.
That's a long time to hold your first customer, 5.5 years. So you must be doing something right.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be fair, I was really lucky. They had a big event 2 weeks ago, so he flew me out to Barcelona with them, and we presented at the MEF and MWC, which is like the big mobile event. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
We just got a great relationship, and it's kind of kept going, which is really good.
Good. I want to talk about the investment, because that's quite exciting for people watching and me as well. But you mentioned your first hire, Dennis, head of product, still with you as well, 5 years.
With us as well, yeah.
That's a accomplishment in itself, to keep someone for 5 years in a busy, demanding, high-pressure startup. I'm really curious, not necessarily how did you find that person, but what were you looking for in a person to bring him on as your first hire, right? 'Cause that's a real tough hire.
Well, this had nothing to do with it, but he's Italian, right? So being half Italian.
So be Italian.
Be Italian.
Accent.
No. When he interviewed, one of the things that stood out with Dennis was he was just, one, very technically sound, and we needed somebody that was going to really be able to get on top of this and jump in. He had loads of experience. But two, he was just really personable. And when you're a team of 3, it's really difficult to think, I'm going to be working with somebody who's just super technical and doesn't fit the mold. You need to try and find that, I hate the word, but synergy between the team. He was just the perfect fit. And he's like slightly sarcastic and in a good way. He's like quintessentially Italian, right? He's brilliant. And that's what I love. And it all kind of fit together. and he runs the team really, really well even now. And everyone that we have in that team, he gets on with. He supports them. He's got a really great relationship with us, so he can call things out as it is. And I think that's one of the things that we look for in everyone is I want challengers. I want people who are going to say, I don't agree with this. I don't think that's quite right. And I want people who are going to give really constructive feedback. I don't like people who moan because they want to moan. That would drive me nuts. Like if you want to moan, that's fine, but I'd rather you come to me with a solution and we can work it out and do that kind of thing. So yeah, he ticks all those boxes, to be perfectly honest.
Some people really are just built for startups and early stage companies, right? Of like no systems, processes, just, go do your job. And they keep coming up with solutions and solving problems themselves, and also team player.
Absolutely. And I think we've dabbled with some people where they've come from bigger corporates and they were like, oh, I can see myself in a startup. And then they come in and they're like, no, this isn't for me. And that's fine. It's not for everyone, right? Like it's a very different environment. Things can be like, one day you're doing this and then next day you've been pulled onto that. Whereas they're kind of used to like longer projects and it doesn't quite fit. So I think it is a jump for some people.
The idea of working in a startup is quite a nice idea.
It's sexy,
yeah,
right?
It is. It's like, fast-paced hustle. We're going to work, we're going to sell. But once you get in, it's very difficult. And we have these conversations week in, week out. So it's nice to hear you say the same thing, actually, that technical competence will only get you so far, especially for early stage companies. You as a free-person business, the communication, the compatibility, the synergy, like you said, has to be there equally as much as the technical stuff.
Absolutely. And I think as well, like if you are someone that can wear, because everyone says don't be a jack of all trades, it's, well, actually, if you can wear multiple hats in a startup, you're onto a winner. And it doesn't have to be like I'm an expert in everything, but if you are an expert in something and then you've got experience in other areas, a startup can leverage you so well because there's so much overlap with stuff and, helping each other out and all that kind of thing. It's a massive skill.
Yeah, I completely agree. And one of the things that we look for when helping companies hire is someone who wants to continuously learn and probably learning outside of work to upskill themselves because, you can wear multiple hats. You might have a basic understanding in different areas of business, but if someone wants to continuously learn and get better, they're going to pick up different areas quicker. So that's one of the biggest things we look for as well.
Absolutely. And I think just wanting to push yourself further, just always being like, I want to be better. So if you're somebody that wants to do a 9 to 5, that's completely fine, but you probably won't last very long in a startup. And that's not because we're saying everybody has to work till whatever time. It's not that. It's just that sometimes you're going to have to go, I'm going to get in at 8 o'clock today because I really need to get this done and I'll work till 7. And we're really flexible like that. Like if you did that, you can have more time off than the rest of the week or whatever. But sometimes you've just got to be able to put your head down, focus and get something done. If you want to clock off 9 to 5, startup's not for you.
Startup life is not for you. Completely agree. Going back to the investment then, that was your first time navigating any sort of investment yourself?
Yep.
Talk to me about the approach. Did you go out? Did they come to you? Give me an idea.
It was interesting. So I had somebody that I had spoken to since I was probably about 12. So he had a number of media companies, different things. He's an absolute gentle giant, and he always said to me, "Look, if you ever want to do some business, if you've got a business idea, come and have a chat with me, and I'll be more than happy." Like I didn't realize how busy he was, right? So I would be like, "Oh yeah, can I come and have a chat?" He would always make time for me. He was like amazing. He unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago after he invested in us, but he was like, "Look, just come and have a chat." When I met him at the pub, we sat down, just talked about what the idea was. And he was our first investor. And he said, "Look, I've got a couple of people I can introduce you to," which was amazing. And then Tramshed Tech, obviously we've been based there. We were talking to them as well. And Louise and Mark have always been really supportive. And at the time, it just so happened that we were just kind of looking for different investment things at the right time. And they knew somebody, so they introduced us. So we went and spoke to Lord Mervyn Davis, who was one of our investors, and he was like, "Look, I love this. This is great. I've got some people you might want to know and go and speak to." And then he introduced us to some people. So what happened is it became like a bit of a web of people introducing us to people that started off just from having relationships. And I think one of the hardest things in business is growing your business if you don't have relationships. So even for the investment round for us, it grew from relationship to a relationship to a relationship. And especially early on, people are really investing in you, right? Like if you could have the best product in the world, but if they don't believe you and your vision for the business, they're not going to invest in you.
Yeah, completely agree. So that was various angels.
Various angels, and we've only ever done seed rounds with angels. So we've raised 1.7 million to date, and we've been really lucky because we've brought a few extra angels on in the last round, but our angels have pretty much followed us through.
Congratulations, 1.7 mil. That's incredible.
Yeah, so it's really good. But yeah, like I think we're at the point now where we're, what the future holds in terms of any more investment or whatever. We're like, we'll have to play it by ear. But
yeah,
it's exciting. It's been really good. It's been a really good journey.
Yeah, well done. I speak to a couple of founders. I've spoken to a couple of founders previously, and one thing two of them said was, getting investment isn't the achievement. That's when the real work starts. So when you took the investment, money come in. How did you feel? And then what was like the next steps?
Well, the reality is sometimes it can take a bit longer than you anticipate, right? So sometimes you've already spent it or some of it or part of it, and you're trying to get ahead, because with investment comes the requirement to keep scaling and keep growing. And I think, you're talking about risk earlier, right? And it comes down to, it's a very surreal scenario to be going, I'm going to lose money every month because I need to keep growing, but I need to minimize how much money I lose each month. Whereas in the world I was in before, it was all about the profit, right? So it was how much kind of profit can I make? And it's a very weird mind shift that has to happen, mindset shift that has to happen. And you kind of go, okay, I need to get my head around this and I need to spend this money to grow. But you kind of, because that money's there to grow, you're living beyond your means. And it's a very, very unnatural feeling at first, but you kind of, I suppose you get used to it, and it's all about the budget planning. And I was talking about the calculated risk earlier, right? And it's about that, making sure that you're calculating what the risk is versus the benefits.
Yeah, for sure. How did you make yourself attractive to angel investors, right? Because before you answer, I speak to startups and it's quite a tough time to get investment in a minute. I don't know if you agree.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, for sure. So if you've got revenue, great, you're halfway there. But lots of companies are, MVP, certainly pre-revenue anyway. Yep. Number one, did you have revenue? And then how did you make yourself attractive as a business to those angels?
Yeah, so we had revenue from that bootstrap first year before we went for the investment round, but it was also very clear that wasn't the revenue that was going to be actually generated from the product. So it was kind of a bit of an odd one. So we just made it really personable and made it about us and why our vision for the platform was so needed. So, we had one of the investors that was kind of a bit, well, there's lots of data platforms out there. Why is yours any different? In the beginning, and after sort of a 20-minute conversation, they invested, and they were, I think the mindset shift happened because we were like, we understand why this is needed, and this is very clearly the message. And I think some people, you might have a general idea. You need to have a very specific USP as to why your product's different in the market. And I think ours was, there is nothing that's like a code-free data platform that quite addresses this business intelligence, data literacy gap. And then we just made it about us. Like, why would you want to invest in us? Well, because we're a team. We bounce off each other. We talked about all of that in the investment conversations and what our complementary skill sets were and all of that sort of stuff. And I think it obviously resonated, and people obviously liked us enough to invest. So I think that's sometimes something that gets missed. People forget that they should be personable and be themselves.
Yeah, I hear that all the time, that investors will back the people, the founders. And being personable, like you said, goes a long way. People want to invest in people that they can believe in and also see potential in. And you speak very passionately about the product, and if you've actually got the product to back it up, you've got best of both worlds.
Absolutely, yeah. So
you said that no more investment, or you'd have to be very careful about taking on any more investment. Do you mind sharing some more about that?
Well, it's just, you get to the stage where you've got lots of options available, but every time you take an investment round on, you dilute your share in the business. Sometimes it's a necessity, sometimes it's a necessity to keep scaling. And one of the sentences that somebody once said to me was, would you rather the whole of a mouse or the leg of an elephant? And it kind of stuck with me because, yes, you might have a smaller percentage in this business or whatever, but if the business grows to the size of an elephant, that leg is much bigger than a mouse, So that's the way to sort of think about investment rounds and how you get there. But you come to a point where we want to be, cash positive now. This year we should be hopefully profitable, revenue generated, profitable. And yeah, so we're kind of pushing for that. But you do also have the challenge of, well, if we could grow the team a bit more, if we could bring more salespeople in, if we could do more, you've always got that option to scale it even further. But how far do you scale it? It's actually quite a really interesting back and forth challenge of, God, how far do we push it?
It's a good analogy, by the way. I've heard various ones, but not the mouse or the elephant one. And I agree, on a smaller scale, I'm looking at hiring my second consultant, so a small team of 3. But it's like, do I go one more? And, are we going to have enough work? But yours is on a bigger scale. Now, if we hired 3 more salespeople, we can make more sales and scale the product. But then how far do you go?
Yeah, it's a challenge. It is a challenge. And I think at the moment, we're on a good trajectory. So we just need to hold it out for a minute. So that's why I'm kind of in this. We're not sure yet, because we should be cash positive soon. So we need to just hold out and see. And then we can decide once we get there whether or not we go again, and for the right reasons, and push it forward.
From a personal perspective, have you ever had any mentors, Neds along the way? Do you have them now?
Yep.
And do the angels play a part in that? Do they support you in that way?
Yeah. So we've got James Taylor, who used to run Superstars. He's been a non-exec with us for 2-3 years. He was at one stage he was doing sort of 2 days a month with us, where he was doing full workshops. He's now on our board. Dan Tubbs, from a financial perspective, on our board. He's our CFO as well, FD. And then Sharon Lowry, who is our chair of the board. She's got vast experience in digital transformation space. She came on board last year. And Tom Davis as well, who is Macros Holding. He's one of our investors, and he's like a liaison with the investors, but he sits on our board. All of that team, with myself and Josh, we meet every month, board meetings, strategy sessions, planning, and they're a massive support.
As a team, all of those meet in the same
all
room?
Of those meet in our board meetings, and then we have breakout sessions with them in different capacities. So our FD will be talking financial stuff. Then growth into certain markets will be like chair of the board discussions, and also some of the operation stuff. Tom, how can we leverage investors to kind of help us understand who else we can speak to and build the business? There's so many different avenues. And James, from a mindset point of view, James Taylor is always worked with us on, you as founders, what can you do? Like, how can you make yourselves better as well as the business? And it's a really interesting point of separating yourself as a founder away from the business sometimes, and how that can be different. Because otherwise you can just get stuck in the grind of, generating revenue or growing the product or whatever that is. But actually, how do you better yourself so you can better the business is a massive, massive point.
This is really interesting, and I'm very curious. So I'm facing a problem that you just mentioned there about business is going well, revenue's doing very well. We had our best month last month. We're on track for another very good month. Yeah. I'm aware enough to realize that I don't want to go on the journey alone. Like you said, I'd rather have the leg of an elephant rather than the whole of a mouse. Mm-hmm. So I've started, and they may be watching this. It's full transparency. Speaking to like growth advisors and non-exec directors for our business. At what stage did you realize that you wanted to bring people like that on board?
I think for us, it was when we were getting stuck in the grind of the day-to-day. What they do is they help pull you out of that, even if it's just for half a day, for a day. And you talk about working on the business instead of in it. You need to do both, right? And you need to also work on yourself sometimes, and it's easy to forget that. So they will pull you out of the business for half a day to 2 days, whatever you need, and it just gives you that mindset. You've got to turn your emails off. You've got to turn your phone off. You've got to be out of the business for that time, and it will give you a big shift. It will give you a big mindset shift, and you will feel like, oh, I feel re-energized, and you can go back in and do it. So I would say if you got to the point where you feel like you're in the grind, it's the time to do it.
I'm exactly where you've just mentioned.
Yeah,
I enjoy the grind. The grind's great, but I find myself working so hard in the business that I can't get out of the business. And working on yourself. There's so many things to work on. It's hard to do it on your own. So we've got 4 coffees and lunches lined up over the next 2 weeks for this exact reason. It sounds like it's benefited you on your journey massively.
Massively. Yeah. And it gives you, I think the thing it gives you the most is perspective, right? It just gives you that fresh view. I was talking to I can't remember his name now. It's completely gone. I was talking to somebody at an event, and he was telling me about it's the train versus plane philosophy. I don't know if you've heard of this.
I haven't heard that one though.
So, and you'll have to put his mention in the thing. Simon. I can't remember his surname is, but I'll send it across. So, train versus plane philosophy is if you're on a train and you're going really quickly at ground level, everything is flying past you a million miles an hour. Right? It's really difficult to see anything that's happening outside that window because that's your day-to-day commute, your day-to-day grind. If you can pull yourself up into a plane and you're looking at the same journey from a plane's perspective, it just seems like it's going a lot slower. And if it's going a lot slower and you're looking down on it, you are actually traveling faster than you are in the train, but you've just got more perspective. And it was just that when he said that, I was like, wow, that is...
I've just felt like, yeah, wow, yeah, I've not heard that one before, but it makes perfect sense.
Makes perfect sense. And I was like, yeah, that is amazing. Like, why hasn't anybody described it to me like that before, you know? So, I think pulling yourself out of the business to do that is going to help.
Easier said than done sometimes, isn't it? Especially in the early stages, but the way you just explained it then makes total sense.
I think the thing that I used to find hard is same as you, as I was like, there's a million things to do. I'm really busy. I can't give the time up. But when you take the time out, all of a sudden, by the time you go and work the next day, you're so much more productive. You will find that all those tasks that seemed like there was just no way through them, you will tick them off for like rapid speed because you've just got more perspective on what's important, what's essential. All the noise, you just go, oh, it's gone, don't need that. And it gives you that.
That's what I was hoping you would say. I'm quite excited.
Good, definitely do it.
It sounds like a really good journey so far with Configur then. So what's next? What's the next 12 months look like for you in the business?
So for us, it's about growth at this stage. The product's really exciting. We're in a really exciting phase. We've brought in a CMO tail end of last year. There's been a whole new marketing strategy, which is really exciting. So there'll be a lot more content coming out from us. Lots of videos, really exciting sort of webinars, different things. It's something that we've always kind of struggled with because it felt like a secondary thing, right? But it's so important to have that to spread awareness, to help people understand what it is you do, and it just feeds into the sales funnel, right? So for us, it's all about the growth, continuing to improve the product, keeping our customer base happy. We've got some amazing clients, so making sure that they're getting everything they need, but primarily it's about growth. It's about scaling into different markets, pushing growth in the ones that we do have that we kind of really focused on, and that's the main thing, mate. It's really important for us to do that this year.
Yeah, nice. It's good to hear you're investing in the marketing department as well. I have heavily this year as well. We're only a small business, right? But it's hard to quantify the revenue growth from marketing, but I know it works. So just keep pushing it. But you've invested in a CMO and you're really going for the...
So we've really gone for it. I mean, bringing agencies in and different things and exploring who they're going to be. But it's been driven by our CMO and she's had subcontractors working with us and different things. So we've got a bit of a new rebrand style look coming in. But yeah, I always call it the fluffy stuff and they go mad because I'm like, all this fluffy stuff of marketing, you know, but it does work and it does get awareness out there. It makes people... I've realized, I don't know if you've noticed this, right? But if you have a period of quiet on LinkedIn, somebody will say, is everything all right? You've been really quiet on LinkedIn and the business has been quiet. Whereas if you've got really rapid content coming out on LinkedIn, all of a sudden everyone's going, yo, guys, you were smashing it. You're absolutely smashing it. And LinkedIn has no realistic outcome or kind of perception of what your business is actually doing. But it's to that, the perceived perception is so important. And when you seem like you're thriving on LinkedIn or on other social platforms, people are going, oh yeah, I want to work with them. And it has a massive impact. But I didn't realize how drastic that was until we had a period where we didn't have much content going out and somebody was messaging me saying, everything okay? Like, what's going on? I'm like, yeah, we're just so busy that we can't put any marketing out because we didn't have a marketing person. So yeah, marketing is more important than a lot of people realize, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I wouldn't know about not posting on LinkedIn because I post a lot.
You're a regular poster.
I'm a regular
poster. I do love your post though.
I've actually up to 2 posts a day now rather than 1. Yeah, so it's just a big part of our drive. Like you said, it's funny because people message me saying, just being saying as it is, like, you know, love your posts, they're really good, keep smashing it. Like it's completely different behind the scenes. Like these LinkedIn posts are there for like a marketing purpose, but it's not an accurate representation of where the business is or what we're doing in the background.
Yeah.
But it just helps that perception.
Do you wear your shorts to work, or is that just for LinkedIn?
Oh, that's just for LinkedIn.
Oh, is it? Okay.
And WhatsApp. Yeah. It's been a really good talk about Configur. I could be here for another hour, but I want to wrap up with some personal stuff. I hope you don't mind me sharing. You look great.
Yeah.
You look great. You've lost some weight
Thank you,
recently.
mate.
Yeah.
4.5 stone down now. So
Incredible.
Yeah, feeling really good. I've been just exercising. I've been on Manjaro, which is weight loss injections.
Mm-hmm.
So if you listen to the Daily Mail and other things, it's a controversial topic. But I've been on TikTok posting about it and different things, and the amount of people that it has helped is insane. So yes, for newspaper sales and different things, it'll get called out for the minority. But for context, 500,000 people are on it in the UK at the moment, and it's changing lives for people. And for me, it's just given me a mindset shift. It's stopped me thinking about food all the time. I didn't realize how much I was thinking about food. I'm Italian, right? So I'm going to think about food a lot, and I've grown up around food, but it's sort of taken over a bit. And all of a sudden now I'm at the gym. I'm more focused. I'm feeling great, and yeah, just feel great. I've got another 3 stone to go, and I'm training for a half marathon in October in Cardiff. But not quite doing the marathons like yourself yet. But
next year.
Yeah.
Next year. Start off with a half, and it becomes addictive.
Absolutely.
But no, you look great. And the
you,
benefits speak for themselves. The less brain fog, not thinking about food so much, back in the gym, running. To be transparent with everyone, have you noticed any negatives? I'm always curious. Any downsides?
No. I haven't
All
had
positive.
any negatives from losing weight, really. No.
Good.
Which is
no wonder
which is
so many people are on it.
I know, but there are side effects that people have. I might just be one of the lucky ones that have never had any really side effects. I mean, there's 1 or 2 that are minor that I probably wouldn't talk about on this podcast.
Yeah.
But if you do want to have a look, go to my TikTok and you'll see me talking about them. But yeah, mainly like constipation and stuff like that.
Okay.
It hits you sometimes.
Yeah.
And the ability to sometimes you feel you like struggle to eat. When you get like heavy suppression, they call it, it disappears. But you sometimes feel like, I don't know if I can eat anything. And I'm not used to that.
Yeah.
That's completely the opposite to everything I'm used to. But
talk to me about this TikTok journey. Is that just for Manjaro, or is that for the business as well?
no, it's just been personal. So part of, you're talking about that outlet, that release, that's my creative release. That it's the one part of my life that has nothing to do with the business. So I'm just like, I'm just going to post stuff that I want to post. And it just gives me, I'm thinking of posts. I'm looking at the creator insights and what can I talk about? But I'm doing that purely from a personal journey point of view. Built a load of friendships on there, people that are all over the country that I talk to regularly now, different things. But yeah, I've gone from, in October, when I started, I had about 800 followers, and I'm now at like 9,300. So it's been a really interesting for me to see how you can ramp up your TikTok channel and different things as well.
I think that's classed as a micro influencer now, Marco.
Well, I'll take it.
Yeah. So
Hashtag,
10K.
Hashtag influencer.
Yeah. 10K. That's when you get that title.
Absolutely.
So that's the journey of Configur. That's the TikTok stuff, personal goals, personal situations. Still happy family man with 2 kids.
Yeah, 2 little kids, 5 and 4. They keep my wife and I on the run on a regular basis. 2 little girls, but it's all good. I mean, it's so difficult to balance everything, family life and work and all the rest of it. But
I was just going to ask that actually as like one of the final big questions: work-life balance. What's your perspective?
So I try and carve time. I try not to work weekends in the day ever. So I'll sometimes work in the evenings on the weekend, but I'll never work in the day because that's my time with the family. And then I try best I can to finish 4:30, 5 o'clock till about 7, and that's my family time till the girls go to bed. And then I'll most evenings, let's be honest, I'll work in the evenings, but I just try and find that time. So my calendar's blocked out. People can't book in at that time unless it's an emergency, and then needs must and all that. But
yeah, and when you're with the kids, it sounds like you're very present.
Yeah, I've got to try and be present. And sometimes I try and have my phone, and I'm like, right, I've got to stop doing that because sometimes it spills over and there's certain things happening. But try and leave the phone upstairs. I try and leave it upstairs. It's out the way, and then I can't be bothered. I can't be contacted, and it can wait 2 hours. Right, there's very few things that can't wait 2 hours. So
You always think it's catastrophic. Or the
Yeah.
business is going to shut down. You open up your emails and it's fine.
exactly.
I'm the same.
Yeah.
Pleasure. Thanks for coming on, man. I've really enjoyed today.
Thanks, mate. Cheers, Kieran.
Appreciate it. That was episode 5 of the Calculated Risks podcast with Marco Oliver. What an interesting journey from him dropping out of sixth form to working in the public and then private sector to moving on to starting his own business. I really enjoyed speaking to him about the different types of investment that he and the business has taken on and where he sees the business going over the next 12 months. We've got some more interesting conversations booked over the next few weeks with entrepreneurs and technology leaders based in South Wales. So please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and we'll see you soon.